Good morning, everyone. I think we need to start now. We're already running a bit late. Thank you very much for joining this first session of the morning. So the topic of this session will be the Scale-Up initiative that we have been running under the FICOMPASS program over the last 18 months, and more generally, the energy efficiency financial instrument. So a bit more details about the agenda. We have structured this agenda into various subtopics. So first of all, we'll give you an introduction about the Scale-Up initiative itself, for those who do not know it. And then it will go into two thematics. First of all, how to put in place combined financial instruments for energy efficiency. And for that, we'll use two examples, one from Hungary and one from Lithuania. Then we'll address the topic of how to mobilize private sector financing. We have discussed this already over the last days. It's a key issue, key challenge to scale up the energy efficiency financial instruments. So here we'll hear the feedback and the views of financial institutions. And then last but not least, we'll discuss the state aid aspect of the financial instruments, and we'll have the pleasure to hear colleagues from DG Competition. In terms of practical organization, I would propose to keep the questions for the end of the session, so we'll try to have 15 minutes of Q&A discussion with the speakers. So please note down the question, the comments you have in mind, and we'll give you the floor afterwards. We'll do that in two ways. So either you will use the microphone and stand up directly. So this would be preferable to have a sort of discussion between you and the speakers, but we'll also make available Slido so that you can ask the question this way. So I will introduce our panelists this morning. We have a very interesting panel, a lot of speakers this morning. So I will start with Andrei Urbanik from DG Regio, from the European Commission. Andrei is policy officer in the B3 Financial Instruments Unit and has been involved in the Scale-Up initiative. Then Marc Bateau, who is senior advisor in the ESIF regulatory department of the Ministry of Public Administration and Regional Development in Hungary. Adrien Fekete, who is senior manager in MFB, so MFB, the National Promotion Institution of Hungary. Adam Irny, director of the Sustainable Business Development Department at BNP Paribas in Poland. Roxana Popescu, loan officer at the Financial Institutions Eastern Division in the European Investment Bank. And sorry, Laura, I forgot you were not in the right order on the slide. So Laura Sozonoviciene, head of business area development division at ILTE, the National Promotion Institution of Lithuania. And at the end of the panel, Michel Lemblay from DG Competition, the European Commission. So let's start. So as I said, we'd like to give you a first introduction to the Scale-Up initiative. So Scale-Up was a program that we have been running under FICOMPASS over the last 18 months, and which was dealing with the energy efficiency financial instruments. So I would like to ask Andrei, who has been leading on this initiative on the Commission side, to give us his insight, take on from the results and of this program.
Thank you, Olivier. Good morning. Let me start by saying that I'm glad to see so many faces in the morning after the lovely and intense evening yesterday. Yes, the Scale-Up initiative started 2 years ago. And I'm a bit sentimental because, in fact, it is meant to wrap up the initiative and to talk about the results. Let's see how it goes. But the main objective of this initiative was to bring together the most experienced experts in the fields of energy efficiency financial instruments and elaborate, first of all, to indicate the most important hindering factors, and most importantly, to elaborate on the solutions that can be eventually replicated in almost all, certainly in some of the member states. This working group comprised of members of 10 member states. They represented managing authorities, national promotional banks, also financial intermediaries. We have been discussing several issues. Legal barriers, legal regulatory, financial barriers, even psychological barriers, I would say, And this may sound odd, but believe me that still the so-called perceived risk of energy efficiency investment is much higher than the real risk. Yeah? We were meeting 3 months together, and to tell you a bit more about concrete topics that we were discussing, these were, for example, how to structure financial instrument combined with a grant. There are various options. There may be investment grants, capital rebate, interest rate subsidy. We were also elaborating on how to draft a good funding agreement. State aid was an important factor, and the credit risk. So that would be my introduction.
Thank you, Andre. And in your view, how has been the experience so far? What were the main achievements?
I'm very proud of this initiative. I think that we've achieved a lot. For example, the capital rebates and how to structure this within the financial instruments operation, we've seen that there may be different options. And it hasn't been mentioned today, but one of the results of this initiative is the document, is a fact sheet on how to design, how to structure a capital rebate. And in this publication, we give two examples from Croatia and Latvia that talk about the same instrument, capital rebate, combined with a financial instrument, but implemented in a different way. So it can be implemented, the grant, either through a holding fund or if certain conditions are met by a bank, by a financial intermediary. So it's possible, yeah? Another good, a lovely example that we featured in the framework of this initiative was from Lithuania. Again, Lithuania sounds to be one of the most innovative countries when it comes to implementation of financial instruments, not only in the domain of energy efficiency. And Lithuanians, in order to scale up, to trigger energy efficiency investments supporting multi-apartment buildings, they designed the so-called administrator model. And in this administrator model, the loan is extended to a legal entity, not to individual apartment owners. And this administrator is collecting loan repayments from all apartment owners. And this solution solved a basic and common problem in all our member states, that there's very often a requirement to have majority within a block of flats of people who would agree to embark this difficult investment. So with this regulatory change, they managed to trigger massive investment. I would not be happy without saying that we achieved a lot in the domain of state aid. And I recall that when we started this initiative, I had this feeling that there's a lot of fear and misunderstanding on how to apply difficult state aid provisions. I named GBER. And thanks to strong engagement of colleagues from DG Competition, I think that we managed to not only explain which specific GBER provisions apply to a concrete combination of financial instrument with a grant, but I think that we managed to reduce the level of fear, uncertainty in this domain. And the plan is to publish a note on state aid in energy efficiency financial instrument that will completely and fully clarify all those issues. This note will be part of the energy efficiency financial instrument model to be published very soon. So maybe that's it from my side for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. So indeed, you can see on this chart a bit the timeline of the initiative and the different topics that were discussed during the workshops. So you can already find on the Phi Compass website under the Scale Up webpage all the presentations that have been made during these workshops, and also summary notes which put together the insights, the topics and the views shared during this workshop. So this is already material that is available to you. And as Andre was explaining, so new publications will soon be published. So the fact sheet on the combination of financial instruments with capital rebates will be published in the coming days. So again, this is a publication that describes from the conceptual phase to the implementation how you can use capital rebates based on practical examples. State aid will be part of this revised energy efficiency model. So you remember this model published in 2022 as part of Repower EU, which has been a source of inspiration for some of you to develop your instruments. Now we felt it was needed to revise it and to update it. So we have now a revised part on the eligibility, but also a much more detailed part on state aid, thanks to the input of our colleague from DG Competition. And finally, this Excel tool to help calculate the gross grant equivalent under GBER. So this came from a request from the members of the working group that was expressed during our discussion. And we collected some examples of such tools developed by NPBs, and we tried to come out with ours, and we discussed it also with DG Competition colleagues. So all this material will be available to you in the coming days or weeks. So I would propose now that we move to the first thematic of the morning, which is about implementing combination of grants and financial instruments for energy efficiency. And this morning, very happy to have two examples being presented. So the first one is Hungary. So we have two representatives of Hungary on the managing authority side and the implementing body side. So I think it will give a very complementary presentation of how this instrument are being deployed. So I will first start with you, Mark, on the managing authority side. So Hungary has been deploying a lot of financial instruments over the years, but could you tell us a bit more about the specific financial instruments for energy efficiency?
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Oliver, for this introduction. It was really nice to see the whole framework of this program, and thank you for organizing it, because it was really a useful initiative. It was not a question now, but I would mention it about the main achievement, one of the main achievements of this 10th anniversary of the Phi Compass, because it was really helpful for us. As it was mentioned, the main outcomes we will also see in the near future. So thanks again for this. And I think this energy efficiency is an area for the financial instruments where they can be really used, because with the energy savings, the savings and the income is really tangible. So it's one of the best areas to use financial instruments to support these programs. Before it, I will show you soon. We have started with grants also in this area, because it was the traditional part, but now we turn to use financial instruments, because, as I mentioned, this is very an area where it can be done very easily and in a very effective way. So I would tell you some words about the framework where we started to use first this kind of instrument. It was the 14-20 period. I would say some experience, although it is not a current program now, but there are many experiences, many conclusions that can be used also by other member states who decide to enter in this area with financial instruments. We have three major kind of programs in the energy efficiency. Not all of them was a combination, but there were also a combined product. The residential buildings where we used loan programs. It was a simple loan. The SME energy efficiency developments in buildings with renewable energy. This was a combined program, and we also had a SME energy program where the the activity of the SMEs was to produce energy. For example, to use solar panels to produce energy, and they can sell this energy on the market. So it was not to decrease their energy consumption, but to produce renewable energies. That was the main intervention area of this program. So what were the main conclusions? In this programming period, that some of you may remember, there was a possibility to use in a separate priority axis the financial instruments, and it was possible to use it with a higher EU co-financing rate. And because we have used a lot, it was a great advantage because of budget constraints to turn to this option, and that's why we have put all of our. It was very interesting I think from a managing authority point of view, although it is not valid because in the latest period it was not offered this option. This was an initial step, of course, but that in many other areas there are this kind of option in programming, so it may be interesting that we have put all of our financial instruments in one priority axis. It was a huge priority axis, and it was put all of them in one operational program. That was the economic development operational program. And although there were energy type of investments, we have put this, because of this methodological issue, we have put all of this in the economic development, although we had a separate energy efficiency operational program. So it was interesting from this point of view because the grant was in the energy efficiency programs, the grant type of support, while the financial instruments was used in the economic development operational program. So of course it requires a high level of coordinations among the managing authorities, because of course they had a separate managing authorities of this program. So it was a great challenge, but I think it was done quite well at that period. Because in the line ministry that was responsible for the program was the same, and they had to cooperate with two separate managing authorities. That was at that time it was not possible, this very attractive model of combination in one operation. So we have used in two operations. The grant part was implemented by the managing authority itself, while the loan was implemented by we had a holding fund or fund of, it was called, I think, fund of fund at that time, and there was financial intermediaries that was selected by the fund of fund, and the loan was implemented by this institutional line, this institutional system. And I can tell you that it was a very complicated issue. So we was one of the big supporter of this combination in one operation, because it hindered a lot the implementation. All invoices had to be paid from two separate institutions. They had to coordinate the paying of every one of the invoices. So it was a very long process. The beneficiaries, the final recipients, had to wait many times to get the money. So it was not really attractive, and many final recipients was not very well incentivized to turn to this kind of support, to this kind of program. So it was not a real success because of this, I would say. It was also underlined by our evaluations that was published recently. So you can also read this evaluation, because it is very interesting also from this point of view. And the last one, which I think it was one of the biggest success, it was a loan program, this SME energy loan program. It presented very visibly the main advantages of the financial instruments. Just to mention an example, we have heard many times from the final recipients of this program who as I mentioned before, this program, we have used mainly grants in this area. And it was very interesting that, for example, the price of the equipment was really lower when it was financed from a loan. So the recipients was really motivated to find the best possibility on the market, and not to pay more because they have to pay it back. So I think this is one of the best options to find the market price, what is one of the biggest challenges in the support seems, you know, in case of managing authorities, so this is the best. I think if the recipients have to pay it back, they will surely find the best source of their where to buy this kind of equipments on the market. So this is it was a very important advantage of this program. And I would say, and I would mention in this case also that the regulatory background has a major role in the success, because the energy that was produced by these companies, there was a guarantee from the state that they will buy this solar energy. So they could calculate at the beginning of their programs that they will be able to sell it on the market. So it was, if they put the money and the necessary assets into this program, it was more or less a guaranteed income for them. So it was there were really many applicants, and they were really satisfied with this program, because everybody could met their expectations in the implementations of this. So I would say this as a success in the past. But let's turn to the current programming period. There you can see there are even more programs in financial instruments in energy efficiency and renewables. You can see the residential programs that became a combined one, but this is already in one operation, so the combination is done in one operation. There are energy efficiency in SMEs. It's also similar to the program that was before, but now this is a loan program. And there is a geothermal energy program. Hungary is quite rich in this kind of energy, and to exploit it, you have to exploit in the first steps. You have to support in the first steps the companies to let them exploit this possibility, because there is a high investment cost at the beginning in this kind of programs. And that is the Just Transition Fund Finance Program for SMEs in selected regions. You may know this Just Transition Fund in regions where they have to change their economic activity from the old type coal mines and the related companies, and they have to find the new areas where to work. We have three regions, or three small regions in Hungary where this kind of activity was very strong, and in these regions the SMEs had to be supported to change their activity, and this loan program is created for them. So these are the programs we are preparing, or some of them are still in progress. They are operating. Adrian will speak about this, about the residential, that is the most advanced phase at the moment from these programs. The main conclusions from this programming period, although we are not at the end, I think we will enrich. We will enrich these conclusions in the future. This combination in one operation seems to be more effective than the model in two operations, so we are really satisfied. I think it was a great step in the regulatory background that now it is possible, and I think on both sides, it's also from the regulatory point of view and also from the operational point of view, it is okay. So the payments are more fluent, so you can pay it very easy. The recipients can get their money more easily, so we don't have this kind of problems that we had before in the model in two operations. So it's a good experience. It's a good result of this change. And the SME products are now in the publication phase. This is the second and the third in the list on the left side. So the real test is coming. I think this is the quarter when we would like to publish all of this program. It's as I mentioned, it's a quite sophisticated. There are many programs because in certain phases of this geothermal energy, for example, is when you have to drill and find the energy source. It's very risky because it's not sure that you will find anything in that point. So for this part of the investments, we give grants as as well. But for the later phase, when the risk is less, because you know there is energy, and you know you can calculate how big will be the investment, and in that phase there is a loan part in the program. So it's quite we don't know whether it is sophisticated or complicated. We will see how the market will accept this, whether it will be adapted by them, and they will find the right structure, and they will not say that it's too complicated and it's hard to find which is the best source. So this is still in the test phase. Maybe on the next meetings in the future we can also speak about this and about the results and the conclusions of these programs. And it's also important what is mentioned in the last point, that now the financial instruments are distributed in the program structure according to the thematic area. So we have not a separate priority axis anymore because it is not required. But as a consequence, the managing authorities, for example, in our case, the energy efficiency managing authority that haven't dealt before with financial instruments, only with the grant part, now they have to learn also these areas. Of course, this process is not very simple because they are not used to this program. So it's also a consequence of that. We have put all together in the economic development program. Now we have to build this system also in another managing authority that is necessary for the implementation of financial instruments.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for this very comprehensive presentation of the 2 periods and the impressive number of different financial instruments you are implementing. So in the interest of time, I would propose to move directly to the implementation part of the residential instrument, which is very interesting because it addresses an area which is quite challenging, meaning the single-family housing. So Adrien, you work for MFB, so you're implementing this instrument. Could you please tell us more about the challenges to structure this instrument and maybe already the lessons learned that you have observed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad that I can be here now. May I get... Thank you. Thank you. So let me present the product. It's a home renovation program in Hungary. It was a combination of grant and loan in one operation. It was launched in this year, January 2025. So we have almost a year behind us in experience in implementation, so I can share some of them with you. The program focuses on energy efficiency improvement of family houses in Hungary, so residential buildings. And it targets, and the aim is the reduction of primary energy consumption of these houses with a minimum level of 30%. This performance criteria is also an eligibility criteria as well, which means that if the performance fails, the whole project, so the whole financing amount, which consists of the loan and the grant part as well, will be irregular. So this is a key point. But first, just before we dive into the elements of the product, please let me just have a brief overview of the building situation in Hungary. So what was the rationale for the program, actually? In Hungary, we have 4.58 million residential buildings, and 96.1% of these buildings are in private ownership. This is a huge part, actually, in Hungary. And regarding the age structure of these buildings, it's heavily skewed towards older constructions, meaning that more than 60% of these houses were built before 1980. And sadly, these houses fall into the worst 3 rating categories, energy rating categories, G, H, and Y. So the main point behind this program was that the buildings are the major energy consumers, consuming 40% of the energy, actually. And half of the consumption, 18%, can be saved through energy efficiency programs in line with the 2030 goals of the EU. So about the product, the main parameters. So in the implementing bodies, MFB as a holding fund with 3 commercial banks as financial intermediaries in Hungary. The target group, as I mentioned, absolutely private persons, family homeowners of Hungary, and the whole program fund is around 160 million euros. There are 2 calls for proposals, actually one for Budapest and one for the other regions. As I already mentioned, the eligibility criteria is a 30% primary energy saving, and the performance check is at the end of the grace period, which is a fixed one, 3 months after the performance is achieved. And at the beginning of when the people apply, the clients apply, they have to show an energy certificate, which records the initial state of the house from an energy point of view, energy consumption point of view. And then the end of the construction, the implementing period, you have to, as a client, you have to give a final energy certificate that is issued by an expert, a certified expert. Yes, I also mentioned that the financing amount is 50% loan, 50% grant, and the maximum of this financing amount is 25,000 euros. Actually, it was increased in October this year, so there were some modifications that we just made. One of them was the maximum financing amount, and the other one was the long term. It was also increased to 15 years, just to make it more simple and more attractive for the clients. Of course, we have great expectations regarding the number of applications, but of course it's not the ideal period, actually winter, for construction works. So normally people don't plan any construction during Christmas, but of course there are some, like my family. Yeah. But next year I think there will be an increase in the numbers. The implementation period is 24 months that can be extended with an extra 6 months in justified cases. There's no interest rate, interest free, and no costs, no fees are charged in this program. Results so far what we have. It was launched in this year. We have more than 3,000 applications now. Most of them are decided and contracted, but there are some in programs still, in progress still, the applications. The total budget, out of the total budget, it's around more than 30% of the total budget is covered already. I think it will increase gradually in the next years, especially in the next one. Yes. If we have a deeper look at the applications, what we have received, we can see that the plans after the renovation are quite ambitious. In average, a 3 rating improvement is expected from these construction, modernizations, and renovations. I think it's an outstanding number, actually. And this slide shows that really the 35% of the houses fall into the worst category of the energy scale rate, unfortunately. This slide shows that what are the most popular financed activities in this program. It's not a surprise. Thermal insulation and solar insulation is the most popular one. 91% of the applications contain this activity. the replacement of doors and windows, and the modernizing ventilation and cooling system, and upgrading heating and hot water systems are also popular. What we also see that these works are really complex. I mean, to reach this result, I mean the 30% reduction, you have to plan a pretty complex types of activities. So one type of work is normally it's not enough to reach this kind of goal. You have to combine it with other types of activities. To implement this project, you must need expertise. One of the biggest challenge, I think, in this program to get, so energy efficiency needs expertise. This is not a question, I think, we can agree on it. And it's pretty hard to find the key factories for this program, to find the best experts, just to have the clients how to plan and how to prepare these kind of construction works, how can they reach this kind of this outstanding goal. Other challenge, as just in general, I would like to emphasize is the type of combination that can be implemented is also subject to national law that might contain further restrictions. In Hungary, the Hungarian law state, according to Hungarian law, state claims may only be waived on the basis of legal authorization, which means that capital rebate requires a legal act, actually. In this program, we use capital grant, of course, but I would like to emphasize this point of view as well regarding energy efficiency. And as I mentioned before, this 30% savings necessitates extensive renovation, as I mentioned, so which beneficiaries are less inclined to take, actually. So it has a crowding over effect. I mean that there were many programs before in the previous periods, programming periods, and from financial budgets, that many people were the beneficiaries of these programs, that they have already made some changes and made some renovations before. It means that for them it's even harder to reach this goal, how to apply for this program, for this loan and grant combination. This is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A very, very interesting presentation about this new program. A lot of information and takeaways here. One is that commercial banks may be happy to manage product including grants, so that's good. You are working with 3 commercial banks in this. And indeed, the capital rebate may be not easily implemented in some legislative context, let's say like in Hungary, but in Hungary you find a specific way to go around this restriction and still have a mechanism which is close to a capital rebate. So this is also explained in the fact sheet I was referring to at the beginning of the session, so we are also explaining the Hungarian example. Now we are moving to Lithuania. Lithuania in the field of financial instrument and especially energy efficiency has always been a front runner, a source of inspiration for the other managing authorities. So Laura, we'd like to hear from you more about the financial instrument in this field that you are developing, and what were the key success factors in your specific case.
Hello. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to hear that Lithuania is an example to follow. So I'd like to share more our experience on financial instruments for energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. We have been implementing instruments for energy efficiency for more than a decade, and during this time we can take this. Sorry. Thank you. And during And during this time, we have built a portfolio that covers households, public institutions, districts, heating suppliers, also renewable energy investors, and now also energy communities. And our objectives has always remained the same: to support long-term investments, to reduce reliance on grant, and ensure that public funds generate lasting impact. And in Lithuania, all financial instruments are implemented by National Promotional Bank of Lithuania, ILTE. And we have, for energy efficiency, we have five financial instruments, and one of the largest and most impactful, as it was mentioned, is loans for multi-apartment building renovations. And this, as a large part of Lithuanians live in older apartment buildings, this renovation of these buildings a national priority in Lithuania, and even with economic and social importance, and that's why those our loans are very important to implement, because they enable deep renovation, lower energy use, and also encourages long-term savings for residents. Also, we have instrument for modernization of public buildings. This instrument is for state-owned public institutions in order them to encourage implementing modernization projects for state-owned buildings to enabling energy efficiency or integrate renewables. And also we have loans for heating suppliers. Because Lithuania has a very large district heating network, and modernization of this network is needed also for climate goals. So we launched the loans for district heating suppliers with capital rebate in order to enable such projects as biomass boilers, solar thermal installations, heat storage, network upgrades, and other investments. And all those measures I mentioned, they are all implemented in very favorable conditions, as you can see on the slide. They all have long maturities, low interest rates, also very favorable collateral requirements. And also in some cases there is minimal requirement, in some cases even there is no requirement for own funds contribution, which is also very attractive for borrowers. And of course, in all those instruments, we have loan and grant combination in different percentages, but this grant component is very important because it enables projects to be financially viable and also enable to take these loans and to grant them. Also, we have several measures for renewable energy promotion projects. One of them is loan for renewable energy for projects such as solar and wind panel installations or purchase, also energy storage devices. And these are on favorable conditions, but there is no grant element because we believe that they are financially viable, so there is no need for grant element. But other instrument, that is loans for energy communities, it has grant element, and this instrument is for energy communities because they often don't have resources. Also, they need expertise knowledge. So we designed this element, and it has a grant element up to 50%. And this grant element can be used for also technical support. And one more thing is that this instrument has social element that part of energy produced need to be for residents experiencing energy poverty. So this is social element, and it enables that this measure is not only for green energy, but also for social inclusion purposes. And here I highlighted the main success factors which we believe are essential for implementation of the instrument and the success of these instruments. So the one which is the key element is policy continuity, because during the periods and during different governments, the priority of energy efficiency remained the same in Lithuania, and it was very important for investors that they could plan these long-term investments. Also, of course, attractive financial conditions, especially grant element, because it is crucial for projects to be financially viable. Also, strong cooperation with local stakeholders, clear communication to beneficiaries, and advisory services, because sometimes those energy efficiency projects, they are quite complex with a lot of rules and requirements. So advisory for beneficiaries and clear messages for them are very important for implementation of the project and for taking the loans. And also there are some challenges, which one of them is complex administrative requirements, because loans have quite complex rules and sometimes difficult requirements, and final beneficiaries sometimes it's difficult to understand them and to implement them. So it's one of the challenges to make them simple and clear. Also, there still exists preference for grants over loans, because we feel that there are beneficiaries who still expect grants and hesitate to take loans. But we are trying to change it by trying to show that loans are with favorable condition, that they also have grant elements, and to try to encourage them to take these loans. And also we face, sometimes there is difficult to attract private funds, so this challenge also remains. And but we are trying to deal with all these challenges. We are trying to simplify procedures, simplify requirements where is it possible. Of course, sometimes it's difficult because of regulation requirements, for example, state aid rules requirement, but we are trying to do our best to that there would be more loans and more beneficiaries and more projects for energy efficiency. So
thank you. Very quickly, because we are a bit running out of time, but regarding the question of mobilizing private funds, you've been launching a new initiative in terms of securitization. Yeah. Could you just tell us a bit about it?
We're launching this project, and it's almost in the final stage now. But it was launched in order to attract funding for new investments. And the main idea of it is that a portfolio of illiquid assets is sold and used as collateral to issue green bonds. And these green bonds can be issued in the market exchange and subscribed for various types of investors. And in that way, we try to achieve two objectives. One is to attract financing for new energy efficiency, or even not exactly for energy efficiency, but for new projects. And other objective is to support the development of Baltic capital market. So we hope that everything will be okay, and there will be more securitization projects.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting initiative indeed. So it's a good transition to the next session, which is about mobilizing the private investors, private money for energy efficiency investments. So here we'll hear the views of two bankers. So we'll start with Adam Mirny from BNP Paribas Poland. So Adam, in your institutions, you have had a lot of experience with financial instruments for energy efficiency. So could you tell us a bit what are the key success factors for you? And what kind of right incentives should be given to the banks to implement these instruments, especially with regard to the grant element?
Yeah, thank you very much for invitation to this panel. Yes, today I would like to share with you a history of Polish Sustainable Energy Financing Facility. It is quite old initiative because it was implemented by BNP Paribas together with EBRD and some other financial institutions in 2011. So it's quite old, but it has one very important mechanism that I would like to talk about, and this is why I brought this project today. But briefly about POLSEF. POLSEF was an initiative for SMEs created by EBRD in order to stimulate investments. And in 2011, it was a completely different time than today. Very few SMEs thought about energy efficiency, so it was quite challenging for us to promote this program and to assure the success for POLSEF. But we managed to do it. Finally, 200 million euro of funding was given to the market, and 2013 projects were created thanks to POLSEF. POLSEF was a quite simple program. It combined of three elements: grant, 10 to 15%, depending on the complexity of the project, credit line from EBRD for financial institutions, and very important technical assistance, which was also funded by EBRD. And the technical assistance was provided through list of eligible materials and equipment, the mechanism that I would like to deep dive in a second, and through energy audit for final beneficiaries. So the specific feature of POLSEF was easy procedures, which were combined with free TA and automated list of eligible materials and equipment. Moreover, it stimulated cooperation with suppliers and producers, and more than six, I think, financial institutions and leasing companies took participated in this program, making it more and more available to the market. At the end, we made evaluation of POLSEF, and out of 41 companies asked what they think about POLSEF. All of them said that it's good or very good program because the procedures were not killing them. They were able to easily access funding and subsidy for the projects they wanted to undertake in their companies. And now I will move to the concept of LEME. LEME stands for List of Eligible Materials and Equipment, and more than 70% of all investment projects generated within POLSEF was made through LEME. And why LEME was so successful? Because it was a very simple internet-based tool aggregating green technologies. The list was opened for every producer or distributor, so everyone could submit to the program its technology. And the technology was qualified to LEME if there was 20% of energy efficiency compared to the market benchmark. At the beginning, the list was almost empty. It had 300 products, but gradually the number of products rose. BNP Paribas engaged itself and its suppliers and producers with whom we cooperated at that time to promote the LEME and to register more and more products. And it started to work. After half a year, there were 1,000 products. And what is also important is that this list could grow accordingly to market demand. What does it mean? At the beginning, most of the products were from thermomodernization category. So LEME was almost entirely dedicated to promote energy efficiency in buildings. But the program assumed also energy efficiency in industry. And we looked at our portfolio of clients in the bank, and we have noticed that there are many clients active in industries such as metal processing, plastic processing, automotive, and so on. And we wanted to discover what kind of technologies they are using in their factories. And the answer was they are using 3 types: injection machines, CNC machines, and some other type of machines. And we asked the suppliers providing this type of machines whether they would be interested to register, to try to register those types of machines on LEME, and they did it. And the demand for those machines was quite high, and at the end, the list rose from 300 products to 7,700 products registered on LEME. And I mentioned at the beginning that the total funding provided to the market was 200 million euro. This is true. But after 2 years of implementation, the initial funding envelope was 150 million. And after the end of 2 years period, there was such a huge demand from the market for products registered on LEME that we asked EBRD to increase the available amount. And they did it. They increased it to 200 million euro. And LEME created, as I mentioned, 70% of the traffic within Polsef, thanks to very simple procedures. Everyone who chose an item from LEME could print the certificate, submit it together with loan application or leasing application, and was automatically qualified to 10% of grant. And this is why it worked so well. And the major conclusion concerns the efficiency of the program, because in Poland, we have many examples. We have programs with 70% of grant, 50% of grant. But why Polsef with 10 to 15% of grant was so successful? Because it combined TA, technical assistance, with the grant and with very, very simple procedures which created the psychological impression in SMEs that they don't have to hire EU grant specialists to get the grant, but they can do it by themselves or thanks to the support of technical assistance. And it would be my major conclusion for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Roxana, you work with commercial banks to provide finance to them for a number of different sectors. What's your experience with working with banks for the sector of energy efficiency, and what are the latest market trends in this regard?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi. Good. Hello. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. First of all, it's a pleasure to see you all. Here in the morning after the gala that I understood took place yesterday. So happy to have you here now because I'm aware of time. Just dive into the topic. First, I would like to say that EIB has been investing. Now, I will take the other point: what EIB can do for the energy sector and what has done until now. EIB has been investing in the energy sector since its establishment in 1957, and just to state how important it is, energy has been always, it is one of EIB four main public policy goals. And in 2019 was a turning point for the EIB, because we decided that we want to phase out the, I'm sorry, I'm sorry for my voice. If my voice leaves me, please give me a bit. So 2019, as I said, was a turning point for us, and we decided that we want to support the clean energy, and we want to gradually phase out the fossil-based energy and move towards clean energy, supporting clean energy products. And in 2020, as a EU Climate Bank, we have set an ambition that 50% of our operation to be financed to be green, and this can also be done in the energy efficiency. And just to put some numbers, because all my colleagues had very nice and comprehensive presentations about numbers, what we have done in the energy sector was I think it's quite impressive. We have moved from 15 billion investment in 2019 to 31 billion in 2024. And now, because we are European Investment Bank, and we are funding a large project, of course, but on the other hand, we want to reach the market. And how we can do this? We can do this by partnering with other, with implementing partners, in our case, for energy efficiency program. And how we are doing this? We are supporting such investment either with own funds or via mandates that are given to us by European Commission. And here I just mentioned one because I have on my right side a good partner, BNP, a good partner for EIB, BNP, PF4E is one of the mandates that through which EIB and European Commission have supported energy efficiency. And how we do this now? Okay, this is a source of funds, but how we are doing this? We basically support energy efficiency investments with a wide range of products. Actually, all our products can have a component of energy efficiency investment. So the first three products, what they are mentioned there, investment loan, framework loan, and MBIL, these are pure funding lines through which that we are giving to a financial institution or to a public sector entity, and these funds are given at preferential rates, in return of which we are requesting that this advantage is passed to the final beneficiaries. And of course, we move also into, and I here link to what my colleague from Lithuania was saying, the more structured products and covered bonds. We can support energy investments with covered bonds, of course, with cash securitization, and now to come also to partner with and to incentivize our financial intermediaries actually, and to create space to support further energy investments, energy efficiency investments. We are creating space by providing instruments that would, capital relief instruments like synthetic ABSs. And this, I think it's, well, EIB has been, I will speak a bit later on, EIB has been a cornerstone investment in synthetic securitization, and we have a name on the market, and we have supported this quite strongly. And also in the guarantee space, we have joint financial instruments, what I mentioned before, PF4E and investment platforms. This is something that that I think it's a good example, complex, but very good examples of combination with grants. And now I will just, okay, I'm running out of time. I will present this one, a few projects that we have financed recently to put a bit of flavor on the theoretical part so far. So what we have signed, and this is quite recent, that's a project in Spain, where EIB has invested 113 million million euros, and this investment took form in the was in form of a framework loan. What we have done, basically, we have granted the funds to the Institut Municipal de l'Habitatge et Rehabilitació de Barcelona, and in turn, the institute has financed eligible projects, and the idea for this project was we wanted to support the construction of new social and high energy efficient housing for the rent in Barcelona. Why we like this project? We like this project from 2 points of view. First of all, it was energy efficiency. What we said, we are investing in high energy efficient, we are encouraging investment in high energy efficient housing, but it's also about the social aspect, because in the end, these apartments were rented out to to low income part of the population, and this, I think, this is what it's a perfect example of an EIB project. Why EIB wants to see impact in the real economy. Also, the tenor, of course, of our product is of this. Is aligned to the underlying investment, so you can see we can finance 30 years investment. Now. If we are moving a bit in the space of a more complex type of financial instruments, here, what we have financed in January 2024, the covered bonds, how covered bond works, and why is in a way serving serving what it was mentioned before, that we want something that is market aligned. We have invested in covered bonds, basically. How we do investment in covered bonds? In general, now I'm talking not only applicable also to green covered bonds, let's call them like that, green covered bonds, is that we invest at market terms. And the important thing is that, the prerequisite actually is that there is a bond issuance, a bond program issuance in place. And with this project to which we subscribe to market terms, in turn, we are requesting a portfolio to be built. Normally it's 2 times of EIB investment. This is what we are requiring. And normally, I mean, what is the beauty of the new portfolio, and it's also what I said before, is that actually the loans to the final beneficiaries are actually at more attractive terms than that would be otherwise promoted by the bank. Of course, we know that, and now I'm talking about how difficult it might be sometimes to work with multilateral development banks. I guess we don't have to shy away from this. We are requesting quite a few, quite some reporting, and in order to make sure that the financial intermediary has built the systems, everything to be in place, to basically to conform with our requirements, we are calling what is called the retrocession. What is this retrocession and where it comes from? It's basically we are EIB, we are a AAA rated bank, and therefore we have access to cheaper funding sources, and we are pricing again these covered bond instruments, and the difference between what we see as what you see as a market price and what is actually the price of the market price of the covered bond is passed to the financial intermediary to support what I said, this build up, and to passing on part of this advantage to the final beneficiary. Then that's okay. I think this would be maybe my last example because I'm cautious. I'm aware of time, but this is a direct investment in, and I think this project is very nice. It's not necessarily. I would say that it's a flagship project for the EIB because for the first time we have partnered. We have partnered with for a securitization, for a cash securitization with with a company, with NPAL. And what we have done there, we have basically securitized. What is NPAL? NPAL is a company that is producing and installing solar panels for the private individuals. And basically what we have done, we have created, it's a mistake, sorry, in the securitized pool, it's not mortgage loans, it's solar panels, excuse me. That's my bad there. And what we do, what NPAL was requested to do with the fact that we have invested, we have acquired this securitization. We have invested basically in the senior tranche of the securitization, and in turn we have requested that new investments are being deployed to in photovoltaic and battery storage and electrical vehicle charging stations. And again, I mention it again, this new investment have to be done at more favorable than normal, the actual market terms. And I'm sorry I had so many other examples, but I don't have time to go through this. What I would say, and this is just to liaise with what was said before. We know that energy efficiency instruments are not that easy to implement, and they require a lot of investment, so to speak. But okay, and we as EIB, we sometimes require some additional information, but we are also helping our financial intermediaries to do that. And how we did that, and then I hand over to Olivier to discuss about Green Gateway and our initiative about
yes, maybe you can just move to the next slide. I don't think we have the time to discuss about it, but just to underline this advisory program that indeed the EIB is running for the commercial banks or public banks that are implementing its financing in the field of green investment. So it goes beyond energy efficiency, but this is indeed a support that is very much welcome due to the complexity of the sectors. Now let's move to the last topic, which is not the least important, which is about state aid. So as we said at the beginning, we benefited from the strong support of the colleagues from DG Competition during the Scale Up Initiative program, and they have produced a very interesting pedagogical paper on how to apply state aid framework to energy efficiency investments. So this will be integrated in the revised energy efficiency model, but Michel will give us a flavor of it, and that hopefully we'll have still a bit of time for questions. Maybe we'll borrow 5 minutes from the coffee break, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you very much, Olivier. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Michiel Humblay. I work at the European Commission, the Director General for Competition, where I'm in the unit dealing with state aid for environmental protection. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to explain how state aid rules apply to the use of financial instruments to support energy efficiency investments in buildings. And it comes at a very good moment because, as Olivier mentioned, in the forthcoming update of this FI Compass model for a financial instrument with a grant component to support energy efficiency, we have recently further clarified or tried to further clarify and consolidate the chapter on state aid aspects. But maybe let me start with a brief introduction on state aid control. When is a measure actually considered to entail state aid? So the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union defines a number of conditions that must be fulfilled on a cumulative basis. First, there must be state resources involved. Second, those resources must be used to favor certain undertakings engaged in an economic activity. In other words, there must be an advantage, and that advantage must be selective. And third, there must be a risk of competition distortions and of trade between member states being affected. The treaty in principle prohibits state aid. However, the treaty also recognizes that sometimes state aid may be justified to achieve certain policy objectives. And then it's up to the Commission to define criteria which aid measures must fulfill to be compatible with the internal market. So that's the introduction. Now, how do we assess, from a state aid point of view, financial instruments to support energy efficiency investments in buildings? First of all, it's very important to realize that the structure of financial instruments, involving not only granting authorities and final beneficiaries, but also financial intermediaries, which help with the implementation of the financial instruments, and possibly also private co-investors, that this may imply the presence of state aid at several or even all of these levels. and thus also competition distortions in all of the corresponding markets in which these players are active. So therefore, in the context of financial instruments, we need to verify the presence of state aid not only at the level of the final beneficiaries, but also at the level of the financial intermediaries and at the level of the private co-investors. But it may actually be that there is no state aid, or at some or even any of the different levels that I mentioned. And in the revised state aid chapter for the updated FI Compass model, we have included an overview of when state aid can be excluded at the level of the final beneficiaries, the financial intermediaries, or the private co-investors. I'm not going to enter into the details of when aid at these various levels can be excluded right now, but I will just say that it is typically difficult to demonstrate the absence of state aid at all of these levels at the same time, in which case you wouldn't have to do with DG competition. For instance, to exclude aid at the level of the final the financial intermediaries, it's necessary to demonstrate that the intermediaries fully pass on the aid from the granting authority to the final beneficiaries. And that requires a precise quantification of the state aid based on what we call a gross grant equivalent calculation, and this is not always straightforward. So with a financial instrument, state aid may be present at one or more levels, and then the Commission needs to verify that this state aid is compatible with the internal market based on the applicable state aid rules. Now, when a measure entails state aid, member states are in principle obliged to notify this measure to the Commission, and then the Commission can check the compatibility of the aid measure. But if a measure complies with all the applicable conditions of the so-called General Block Exemption Regulation, the GBER, which many of you have heard of, I'm sure, then member states may go ahead with the aid measure without notifying it first. And as for this reason, the GBER route, as we call it, is often preferred because it's quicker. We have clarified further in the revised state aid chapter for the updated FI Compass model what are the possibilities under the current GBER to declare compatible financial instruments for energy efficiency investments in buildings, including when they are combined with a grant component. And in the current GBER, there are 2 articles concerning investment aid for energy efficiency measures in buildings, Article 39 and Article 38A. Let me start with Article 38A. This article is there for the most simple setup, with the final beneficiary receiving state aid directly from the state in the form of a grant or another aid form for which a gross grant equivalent can be calculated, for example, a subsidized loan. This article, however, does not cover aid at the level of financial intermediaries or private co-investors, and therefore it's generally not suitable in the context of financial instruments. In theory, Article 38A could be used for a financial instrument context if aid at the level of the financial intermediaries or the private co-investors can be excluded, but as I said before, this is often difficult to demonstrate, so in practice, Article 38A is on its own is unlikely to work for financial instruments. Conversely, Article 39, so the other article that I mentioned, that one has been specifically created to cover aid in financial instruments to energy efficiency investments in buildings. This Article 39, it allows granting authorities to provide aid in the form of loans, guarantees, equity, or an endowment, which the financial intermediaries then are supposed to pass on to the final beneficiaries in the form of loans or guarantees. And under this article, and that's the good thing about it, some aid at the level of the financial intermediaries is implicitly tolerated, because this article requires that financial intermediaries pass on the aid that is coming from the granting authority to final beneficiaries only to the largest extent possible. So not fully, only to the largest extent possible. And it is therefore not required to precisely calculate the gross grant equivalent of the aid as it is required under Article 38A. So this makes, under Article 39, things a lot easier. In other words, Article 39 of the GBER should be used for financial instrument setups in which aid at the level of the financial intermediaries or the private co-investors cannot be fully excluded. For completeness, let me mention Article 39 also contains a number of requirements that have to be met for financial intermediaries or when there is co-investment by independent private investors. Now, the key question is, can Article 39 of the GBER also accommodate grant components with which financial instruments are sometimes combined? And there, unfortunately, the answer is in principle no, although it still depends on the form in which the grant component ends up with the final beneficiaries. And let me clarify this a bit further. So with Article 39, as I mentioned, you can cover aid in various forms, but it does not cover aid to final beneficiaries in the form of grants. So this means that for a grant component alongside a financial instrument, you need the other article, Article 38A, which in turn then requires, as I said before, that the aid is fully passed on to the final beneficiary so that nothing is left with the financial intermediaries. So this means that for a setup of a financial instrument with a grant component, we will often need a combination of Article 39 and Article 38A. On the one hand, Article 39 for the aid in the financial instrument, for instance, a subsidized loan, which must be passed on to the final beneficiaries to the largest extent possible. And on the other hand, Article 38A for the grant component, which must be passed on to the final beneficiary entirely. So this would be the approach in the situation of a financial instrument combined with a technical support grant, for instance, or with a capital grant linked to performance. Another situation covered in the FI Compass model is where the grant component can be used by the financial intermediary to fund a capital rebate to a final beneficiary linked to performance. In other words, the final beneficiary is not obliged to fully pay back the loan when certain energy performance targets are met. And here Article 39 does not work because this article requires final beneficiaries to fully repay loans given to them. So in this case, only Article 38A can be used, albeit with the constraint that I mentioned that the aid at the level of the financial intermediaries and of the private co-investors must be excluded. So there must be a demonstration of full pass-on. Finally, there is a situation where the grant component is used by a financial intermediary to fund an interest rate subsidy for a loan to a final beneficiary. And here Article 39 covers subsidized loans to final beneficiaries, so it can be used in this situation. However, Article 38A can also be used if financial intermediaries, however, then fully pass on the aid provided by the granting authority to the final beneficiaries. So this concludes, in a nutshell, the overview of the possibilities under the current GBER to declare compatible financial instruments for energy efficiency investments. And there will be more details, of course, in the chapter that we have rewritten recently. Finally, if a financial instrument setup does not fit the GBER conditions, then there is still the possibility to have the aid of the financial instrument declared compatible under another legal basis, such as the Commission's state aid guidelines for climate, energy, and environment, or the SEAC, as we call it. But this then requires a notification of the measure to the Commission and the state aid decision by the Commission, and that takes extra time compared to the GBER. However, it also enables more flexibility in the financial instrument setup. So that's what I wanted to say at this point.
Thank you, Michel. It's a very clear explanation of a quite complex topic. Thank you for that. Very quickly, as a follow-up question, you've launched recently a consultation process regarding a possible revision of GBER. Could you tell us about the objective and the timing of this process?
Yeah, sure. So the current version of the GBER that dates back to 2023, but with the evolving policy priorities of the EU, in particular the competitiveness compass and the clean industrial deal, as well as the need to cut red tape and to promote necessary investments, the Commission has indeed announced a review of the GBER. And to prepare this review, a call for evidence and a public consultation were launched in summer this year. And interested parties could give input until the beginning of October. Some of you may have responded. And the Commission is now processing this input received and will still consult stakeholders, albeit that will be then the member states, on the draft revised GBER text before concluding its review process. And the review process is foreseen to be concluded in the fourth quarter of 2026, so end of next year, so that the revised GBER could, according to current plans at least, enter into force in 2027. Now, regarding financial instruments to support energy efficiency investments in buildings, I would like to say that we are aware of the difficulties that granting authorities face in complying with state aid rules, and more specifically sometimes with the GBER rules, notably when they want to deploy financial instruments with a grant component. We would like to thank also all the stakeholders who have provided valuable feedback submitted, both during previous FI Compass events, Q&A sessions that we have already had on the topic, and also the reactions, of course, to the call for evidence and the public consultation. And we can say that this input will definitely feed into the ongoing GBER review process.
Okay, thank you. So obviously that was also a benefit of the scale-up initiative to provide you with some feedback from the practitioners. Okay, so we have a few minutes left for questions. Yeah, I see already a hand in the back, so please take a microphone.
Good morning, Bartłomiej Jakubowski, PGK Poland. My question is, does any of you have an experience with ESCO model in energy efficiency projects financed from financial instruments or broader from EU funds? And what are these experiences, or if you don't have any experience, what are the obstacles to do it? Thank you.
Anybody has an experience with ESCO financial instruments?
You're on the questioner side.
Andre, any view on that, on the ESCO model?
Nobody, really? Nobody? I'm not representing implementing side, but what I can say that on the side of the Commission, we are very much willing to support the ESCO, especially for the public buildings where there is a problem to generate loans, and we know that public institutions are under the strong pressure and they cannot generate new debt. So we've been, during the negotiations, for example, promoting a lot any means to support development of ESCO markets and EPC contracting. I would say that we succeeded only partially. You are from Poland, so I'm also Polish, so I can tell you that there are some Polish programs that have specific provisions in their programs supporting development of ESCOs and EPC contracting. For example, Phoenix, the national program. I think that maybe Lubelskie, perhaps Wielkopolska, but it's a very difficult endeavor. That would be, let's say, a comment from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also quickly refer to a FI Compass publication I think we have on ESCO, which gives some background. Yeah, we can take another question quickly. Yeah, we have the gentleman and the lady here. Yeah, please go ahead, because we are a bit...
I have a question for the Hungarian presenters. I'm Anna Bajomi, working for FEANCA, Federation of Homeless Service Providers, as Energy Poverty Policy Officer. And regarding the residential program, I was wondering if you consider to match better the financing schemes with the financial situation of households, because the targeted buildings are often occupied by low-income households who do not have savings. 1/3 of Hungarians do not have any savings at all. And the lowest income group is not bankable because they have already more debt than assets. And on the other end of the building stock, maybe the grant part is a bit too high, because those that are bankable and could easily upgrade their energy savings with a simple financial instrument, they are used to the grant part,
Okay.
and that is reducing
We'll give the floor to Mark or Adrian, I don't know, wants to take the question. So it's about energy poverty and the residential instrument.
Yes, thank you. Very clear question, and we have faced similar problems, and that's why we have changed. As you could have seen, there was we had a loan program in the 14-20 period, and we have changed to a combined one in the 21-27 period, because that was the one of the main experience of this loan program, that mainly the higher the households with higher income could use these kind of programs mainly in the central regions, and mostly the houses where the program is the highest, the biggest, the energy consumption is the worst. They couldn't use it. And now with this combined part, of course, the part of the grant part is important, and it's not always easy to go to a level higher than this 50%, for example, in our case, to keep ourselves in the combination in one operation. So this is yes, we try to manage with this with this higher part. So the problem is really valid, and now the first experience shows that now we can reach a wider part of the recipients. I don't know, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just one thing, that there's a certain program, JTF, for example, a Just Transition Fund, under which a grant will be available for these people.
Okay, so there is a complementarity of instruments. The question here, the gentleman.
Thank you. I have a state aid question. My name is Melvin Koenings. On state aid, we've seen in the previous presentations that technical assistance can be a very important part of the works as well, because the citizens do not really know how to handle the stuff, and they need first sort of a report or a plan of what to do with their houses. And this is also then important to subsidize, but it can also include state aid. Now in the Netherlands we have used Article 49 of the GBER for environmental studies on that, and it struck me that it was not presented as an example. But I guess, and this is my question for the DG Comp, that Article 49 is really usable as well, especially for the technical assistance, which made it possible, especially for citizens, to receive, or for possible state aid, to up to 80% of state aid. But it does need 20% of your own contribution, so you cannot use it in a system where all technical assistance is provided for by the fund manager, which was part of the presentation. So I do see a little bit of a dilemma there.
Yeah, that's entirely correct. So I didn't venture into all the details, but the chapter that we rewrote for the FI Compass model indeed mentions that for the technical support grants, there's indeed 2 alternative articles in the GBER that can be used. Article 49 is one of them. There is also Article 18, but that's then specifically targeted at SMEs. And these 2 articles may actually allow for a higher state aid amount or intensity than Article 38A. But it's indeed explained what you said in the chapter. It's entirely correct.
Thank you. Maybe a very last question, quick one, and then we go for coffee.
Thank you very much. I have a question to Adam, because we are dealing with how to reduce the administrative burden. So I really like the database. So I have 2 questions. The first one, if I understood correctly, you mentioned that to qualify the product to enter the database, they must be above 20% of the benchmarks. So where the benchmarks come from? What's the source? And then the second one was, I just need to check, I forgot it. So, yeah, basically, what did you mean by saying that the companies or the clients don't need to ask for expertise, they can use the product? So I thought it was a kind of reduction of the administrative burden. So if you can explain that, what kind of simplifying method is that?
Okay, thank you very much. So before entering LEMA, the benchmark must be created for each category. For instance, forklifts, right? How is it done and by whom? It's done by the engineers hired by EBRD who look at the market, look what is the average consumption of energy in given category, in that case forklifts, and when the application from a producer or distributor of forklifts comes, then they compare the energy consumption of given forklift versus the benchmark, and if this forklift is 20% or more energy efficient, then it can be qualified. So this is the answer for the first question. And the second question, I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. You've mentioned about the...
You said that, for example, there is a simplification
okay.
for the... So what does it mean by saying this? What's the simplification?
Okay, what are the simplifications? First of all, the amount of papers. The application form was 2 to 3 pages, and everyone could fill it out because it mainly assumed providing such information as whether the company is SME or is active in prohibited areas. Yes. And then 2 types of projects were eligible under POLSEF. One was the project coming from LEME, so the company could just print the certificate for an item that was pre-approved by the engineers, and that's it. This is all. So the process was super simple. And if the company wanted to invest in more complex project, like thermomodernization of the building and so on, they could ask for energy audit that was provided by technical assistance. And they had no reason to look for energy auditor on the market to prepare the documents. It was provided by the TA.
Welcome to our panel discussion on financing Greentech, the role of equity, innovation, and clean industrial transition. My name is Ando Siitem. I'm part of the FI Compass team at the European Investment Bank, and I'm super honored to have the distinguished panelists with me today. So the green transition is not just an environmental imperative, full stop, so we can close the discussion. It's an economic opportunity. Also, financing Greentech is critical to achieving climate goals, driving competitiveness, and fostering sustainable growth. I think it's also true and known that Greentech innovation is a key element of Europe's environmental and net zero strategies, and startups are a key role to play. So today we'll explore the role of equity, as I said, innovation and clean industrial transition, and how to accelerate all this. So I'm delighted to welcome my distinguished panelists, Salome, Jaid, Corinne, Sille, Isabel, and Jan, not Vaslit, but Jan. So everyone, maybe you can have like a quick intro word about yourself, where you're coming from, and how you relate to this topic. Start with Salome.
You can hear me, right? Yeah, so I represent the European Investment Fund today, and I'm here today because EIF is supporting innovation, and EIF is supporting also Greentech. And personally, I'm here because I work in the research team, and then since our one of the big priorities is climate, we also do research on climate. So I'm here to set the scene, to introduce a little bit what Greentech is, what's the landscape, and whether the equity plays the role in Greentech innovation.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jad Salhab. I'm a senior private sector specialist at the bank, World Bank, the World Bank. We're like the mayor of New York, you know, the mayor, you know. Kidding, we're in wrong context to make that joke. But yeah, I work for the World Bank, and I work on issues of private sector development, currently based in Vienna, and I cover countries in Europe and Central Asia, essentially Romania, Croatia, Poland, Bulgaria, and Cyprus, and the countries I work on mostly. We're working a lot recently on productivity and energy efficiency aspects. We've been doing quite some work with the DG Regio on the topic, but also growth, DG Grow, and more recently now with RTD. That work is relevant, but on the panel discussion today, the value is just bringing in a perspective from a market level or how the market is working, the regulatory, the policy aspects, as opposed to the experience of my colleagues here, which is way more directly down on the field.
I can take this. Yes, hello, my name is Corinne Uppman-Helminen, and I head the financial instruments team at the managing authority of ERDF in Sweden, called Tillväxtverket, and we manage venture capital funds for 3 generations now, 3 consecutive programming periods. So the first period was in 07 to 13, that closed in 2023, and now we have the period of 14 to 20 and this programming period going on. So we have VC funds, regional VC funds in the different parts of Sweden. And then we also have a few thematic funds, which 2 you may have heard of today before, the so-called Green Fund and a Climate Fund. And then we also have a newly established Deep Tech Fund in Stockholm. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and congratulations FE Compass. I'm Silja from SmartCap. SmartCap is Estonian state-owned venture capital fund. Our total assets under management are close to 500 million euros, and we manage 3 different mandates. We make generalist VC investments, we make defense investments, and green investments. We have a dedicated Greentech fund, which is actually funded by European Commission's Recovery and Resilience Facility. There's a 100 million euro dedicated Greentech fund where we make direct investments in companies and also indirect investments through other private funds in green technologies that contribute to green transition in Europe.
Good morning, my name is Isabelle Canu. I am co-founder and managing director of the GET Fund. GET stands for Green European Tech Fund, so we are a green tech private investor fund. We have been anchored by EIF and are very happy that this is the case. It wouldn't have been possible without this investment, to be very honest, in the last years to do private fundraising only. So we are very happy about that. I have many former lives, so I've been working for 30 years in finance, half of this time in equity, the other part of the time in debt. And I've been working for more than 20 years on the public side in 2 VC funds, but also at KfW, always in the mix of subsidies and loans, or subsidies and equities, guarantees and so on. And now I'm a completely free person because it's my private fund. And so it's a completely different world, but it's very nice to know what are the other instruments and to co-invest, of course, with some public instruments. So I have now a double layer, so the investments in our funds and then the co-investments with other public funds. And of course, for our portfolio company, we try to leverage our financing with other financing instruments. And I'm very happy that Jan is here, so he's our first investment out of our fund.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Isabel. My name is Jan Ossenbrink. I'm the CEO, co-founder of a company called Vamo. We are active in Germany, driving the green heating transition. So our focus is on replacing the 84 million oil and gas heaters that run out of service in Europe in the next 20 years, predominantly by the leading technology that we have, which is called the heat pump. So we are estimating 70 million new heat pumps will be installed in Europe over the next 20 years, maybe even more. And we started to hit the market in 2023. We are now a company selling more than 1,000 heat pumps per year, so 13 million ballpark in order intake in Germany. And our goal is really to build an installation and services platform, because the heat pump, with all its benefits, is for most private households the biggest energy investment in their in their real estate, in their house. So we better make sure that these systems that are so expensive on a CapEx basis, but amazing on an OpEx basis, last as long as they can for decades and run as efficiently and without interruptions as possible. That's essentially the mission statement of VAMO. So our goal and my job really as a CEO is to make sure that the heat pump becomes a no-brainer for customers, for installers, and for the power grid. This is also the last section focusing on the power grid, not having to build a new one, even though we install the equivalent of many, many nuclear power plants in the next decades. That's basically also the connection to my background. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I was a researcher. I was a consultant, a VC investor before I became a founder. And this is also, I guess, why I'm here today with this diverse background, but really sharing a bit of the practitioner's perspective of somebody who has benefited, obviously, from the financial instruments that you guys design and develop and bring to the market.
Thanks a lot, Jan. Perfect elevator pitch, I mean. That's how you get the funding from VC fund managers. So let's jump into the topic. I think we don't have much time. I think we can only touch the surface of the whole topic today. But we try to address probably the key, three key themes. What is the Greentech, or what's the Greentech? What we're talking about? Why we actually or should we actually distinguish green or clean or climate or whatever? I think hopefully our distinguished panelists can share light into that. Then also why we do this. What is the purpose? What is the mission? And then how we do. And we have a practitioners here. How we can actually do this. Pull it off. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Salome. Salome has just recently published research, and I think it's a good way to introduce and frame a little bit the whole environment of green tech investments. The floor is yours. Salome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Clicker is here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. It's nice to have the whole ecosystem here. I don't know if it was by chance or like LPs, GPs, and then the most important of the ecosystem, why we exist. So today I'm gonna present a few research points, the results of the project that we launched some years ago. It was commissioned to universities, so the academic researchers, and then we try to get the most important messages from there and get knowledge from the market. So let me share also those results with you. Also want to resonate with the previous session that was on energy efficiency and then how the various funding, affordable funding exists. But what I was missing, the point from the presentation, is that it was not really mentioned of the cost of those technologies that SMEs or households need to pay in order to become more energy efficient, or their housing or their businesses. And that's where, for example, the Greentech comes in. And the Greentech is there to scale up and then to decrease the price of technologies. So as Ando said, that Greentech is not anymore the luxury of the climate. It's not in the center of climate agenda, but more of the economic, European economic competitiveness. We talk about competitiveness a lot. We talk about the clean industrial deal, and the Greentechs are central to it because they also decrease the energy prices and then boost the competitiveness of European companies compared to the peers. And that also creates the energy and energy independence of Europe. So to start with, like what are Greentechs, and then also since the session is named as Greentech, and I'm talking about Greentech, sometimes we use it interchangeably, but there is still a difference. Greentech is more broader term. It includes the technologies that is aimed at environmental improvement in general, but Greentech is more technologies that deals with the energy efficiency, energy storage, waste management, so it's more clean technologies. So since the data is not much available unless it's really a VC invested companies, there is not much data that distinguishes between Greentechs or non-Greentechs. We have NACE codes, and the NACE codes often don't capture the their activities, in fact. So therefore, the researchers that we collaborated with use the machine learning techniques to label those companies as clean techs. The Orbis Bureau Van Dijk data was used for that, and they try to identify 24,000 companies out of the 500,000 European companies. And what was the first result was that actually the clean tech is not the emerging sector. Most of the clean tech companies existed, they founded before 2000, so it's not new and it's ready to be scaled. Then geographical concentration is obvious, so it's Germany, Italy, France that are main clean tech companies are located. And also in the sector-wise, there is in this one that the slide shows, it's in 8 sectors, and it's mainly in air, soil pollution, waste management, sustainable energy production, but it's not that much activity going on in sustainable fuels, which is very important and central for industrial transition. So here also the researchers split the clean techs into 2 big groups. So there were innovators, so the ones that actually create the clean technology, and the ones that on ecosystem and their technologies support deployment and supply and adoption of those clean technologies. So sometimes they face different challenges. That's why we need more like a targeted policies. Also, when we asked about the challenge, we wanted to know the challenges they face. Also in 2 groups, innovator and ecosystems. And there we had quite distinguished challenges for both. So first that comes most is the stringency or uncertainty standards and regulations. And in the follow-up question and follow-up research, we also found out that innovators, in fact, are often welcoming the new regulations. It somehow acts as an enabler and then stimulus to create new companies. But for ecosystem clean techs, because they face cost related to certifications they are understaffed in terms of regulations, they usually don't welcome that much those packages. But what, for example, both of them agree, it's the uncertainty. So there is not a stability in regulations. Often it's simplified or then it's regulated, deregulated. So clean techs and especially startups don't like that much uncertainty. The second one is the complexity of technologies, and that's obvious. That's why, for example, there is much less funding available for clean techs, since it's a quite a long cycle to develop technologies and to scale up. And also another one is lack of demand for clean tech products, and this also brings me back to the energy efficiency of companies, because for them it's not affordable to adopt, so that's why the demand is lacking. And that all brings to then limited access to external finance. That's also one of the biggest challenges for clean techs, and especially we, in the follow-up question, we asked about how much funding they would need in coming 5 years, and most of them, more than 50% said about 50 million. That means that, in fact, it's not already a startup amount, it's a scale-up amount, so there is a scale-up gap for clean tech financing in Europe. So that brings me to another topic, whether venture capital is important for clean tech growth. And I will quickly look at how the project dealt with that. So we had a VC-backed clean tech firms, and then we compared with the pairs. So they built the control groups. So there were non-VC-backed clean tech firms, but VC-backed non-clean tech firms. And we compared how they grew in total assets, employment, and sales. So compared to non-VC-backed clean techs, so meaning that VC is important for clean techs, they actually help them to grow. But for VC, if we compare to the other sectors, they are not doing much better, but they are not doing much worse. They go in the same way. So in fact, the clean tech is performing similarly to other sectors. So yeah, that's all for the research, and then here we also how we support at EIF the clean techs in general, sustainable activities. So just to give you a quick snapshot, in 2024, the climate action and environmental sustainability reached 43% of the overall operations. That was way above of the target that was outlined in European Bank's climate roadmap. And then in terms of equity, it was almost 3 billion. And out of this equity, that's equity that covered all sectors, but still some funds that were not targeting exactly the clean techs, they still managed to achieve certain environmental impact. But dedicated funds, the Greentech investments amounted 600 millions. And also very important is on the debt side, and that includes also a sustainable guarantee facility, securitization, microfinance, especially on the sustainable guarantee. It's important to also to support companies that are adopting and going through the transition so that we also create and boost the demand. And that's all from my side, unless there is a question.
No, thanks a lot, Salome. I think we can move on. Maybe we'll zoom out a little bit, or let's say take a different vantage point from Jade. I mean, you have now done the research. I mean, doing the work with it also together with the DG Regio colleagues on trying to see, I mean, how the energy efficiency correlates with the productivity and the overall competitiveness of the SMEs or companies. So maybe you can give your, let's say, take on the topic, maybe from different angle. The floor is yours.
I guess we're gonna, okay. So yeah, what we've been doing is, we've been doing quite a bit of research recently in two overlapping geographical areas. So some of the research that I'm going to talk about has to do with focus on productivity, and it's not only in the Eastern European or Southern Eastern European, the 4 countries that we work most on, which is Croatia, Romania, Poland, and Bulgaria, but also including accession countries and Caucasian and Central Asian. And there we see a wider European, I mean, the regions that are connected to the European economy. But we also have a very focused analysis on Poland, Romania, that we're as pilots, as examples of the approach that we are doing, but within the European Union and the single market. And they converge a lot in the conclusions, and that's a little bit what I'm going to be talking about. So the first slide, I wanted to just give you the messages outright. What's it that I'm saying, and then I'll tell you why. So first of all, the first message that we see from this research is that there is no trade-off between competitiveness and sustainability. The numbers, what the numbers are saying is that energy efficiency and productivity, so how much value add you create per worker, is highly correlated with the energy efficiency of a firm. The most productive firms are most efficient energetically and the most energetically efficient. That does not imply causality. It's not because you're investing in energy efficiency that you become more productive necessarily. But there is a certain interest in that conclusion because basically what is being done to improve competitiveness, i.e. productivity, is also going to help energy efficiency. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind. The second is that the drivers of CO2 emission reduction over the past 20, 30 years is very much coming from firm level performance. It is being a little bit firm level, I mean every firm being more performant than it used to be, like at the firm level, but also is being neutralized by scale, by growth. And in part, which is my third point, the inefficiency of how the market is working. Sometimes the markets are not working well, so the least efficient firms are eating up more of that growth, taking more of that growth than the efficient firms. And that's surprising, and that's a market failure that can be addressed. And the third is that the return on the investment that we do that firms do in energy efficiency are not very obvious at the individual firm level. So the return is not, I mean, you don't get back your money that you invested as a firm very quickly when you're in most sectors, except, of course, energy-intensive sectors where this is clearly a very important point of competitive advantage. But in most firms, manufacturing services, it is a small part, I'm going to give you the numbers, that compared to what you're actually looking at as a CEO when you're looking at the functioning of your firm. However, if you aggregate the savings that could be done by all firms alike because of the great number, the impact is very big on carbon emission at the national, which what I'm trying to say here is that public interest is very high in getting to those, but private interest is maybe not following, and so that gap justifies public intervention and support. So those are the messages. Now the numbers, what do the numbers say? So here you see on the x-axis, the more you go to the, on my screen, to the right, the 10 percentile up, the top 10% performing productive firms that you see on the x-axis are also the most productive, the most energy efficient in manufacturing, in all sectors. And this is a log. What you see here is a log. Is a kind of translation of the numbers. But what you see 2.1, basically what this graph is saying is that the top 10% performing firms are 8 times more energy efficient than the first 10%. So across all sectors. And this is quite an interesting conclusion. The second is we try to see the correlation, if there is a correlation between investing in clean tech adoption, technologies, for example, heating, machinery upgrades, and so on, does that correlate with productivity? And it really does. So the more efficient firms, the most productive firms, the most competitive firms are also firms that invest in the adoption of clean technologies. And this is based on, we're talking about firm level data across the East European and the South and the Caucasus. It's very high. If I take this down, out of the numbers you've seen before were about the 4 countries I mentioned in the EU, but also about accession countries, Montenegro, Serbia, also about Georgia and Azerbaijan, and also the Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, so the Central Asia, Europe. But this is about Poland and Romania. And here also you see a very direct correlation between energy efficiency and productivity. Productivity is on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have energy efficiency. And it's a straight correlation, controlling for size, controlling for all the things you want. What you see also here in that research, I'm almost finished, is that the gain, so everything from the 0 line down, is how much the countries over the past, since 2008, if I'm not mistaken, till now, 22, how much gain, efficiency gain has been done. So under the 0 line is good, is efficiency gain. So the gains in the light blue are the gains that were made by the energy efficiency at firm level. Whereas what you see at the dark blue is the less good, so the increase in CO2 emission due to scale, to growth, which is something you want. It's economic growth, it's not negative. This is in Poland, what you're seeing, both in energy efficiency and in... but what you see is that the energy efficiency gains are not sufficient to neutralize growth yet. If you add them together, we're still having more than needed. In Romania, an interesting conclusion, what you see in orange, so the same story, but what you see in orange is losses, so inefficiencies that are due to market failure, to the bad allocation. So due to the fact that the market is functioning in a way that the least efficient firms are gaining more market share than the most efficient firms. So this is where public intervention is really necessary in terms of reforms. And then last but not least, what you see here is the aggregated effect. If we take sector per sector in those countries, in the 2 countries, sector per sector, at a NACE 2, NACE 3 level, NACE 3 level even, and 4 in certain cases, you go very granular and you try to bring all the inefficient firms to the level, to the median. If you bring them to the median, just average performance, not top performance, and you put all firms to perform at that level, aggregate at the level of the economy, you would make 40% or between Romania and Poland in terms of emission gains and energy efficiency gains. That's enormous. And those are the sectors that I'm talking about, exclude power, mining, water, and oil and gas. I'm talking about manufacturing, services, and all other sectors. However, if you look at the firm level, which is what I said in the beginning, the gains are around 4 or 5%. So every individual firm have made a gain of 4 or 5%. That's not a lot compared to all the other things that the CEO is thinking about in most sectors, which is what I'm saying is there's a delta between private interest and public interest, and that justifies public intervention. I'm going to stop here. There's a lot more to say, but we'll get a conversation.
Thanks a lot. I think we have now rounded up around why the equity is important, why the green tech startups are important, why also the energy efficiency are important, how they are also related to the productivity and the overall competitiveness. But I wanted to round up, let's say, this kind of a discussion, let's say, framing, the green financing. I just wanted to actually ask from Isabel, how do you approach your potential limited partners or investors, in your fund? How do you sell them the story of why they should invest in your fund, let's say, which is focusing on green tech or clean tech? So what is your story? What is your investment strategy, and how do you define the whole ecosystem from your point of view?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it's not an easy one to answer because it's changed over time. Yeah, that's what we just discussed before. So we have been investing in green tech now the rest of my team also for 15 years. So they started to do that, and it was something for dreamers or for freaks, So it was really uncool to invest in this topic where other people were investing in digital marketplaces or whatever. So, but they did it. So we have now a very good track record, a very good experience. We know what works. And then came the hype, and we started with our fundraising. And in the hype, it was quite difficult for us to make the difference between us, with our experience, and the really cool guys who have done some digital things and that were jumping into green tech because it was the hype and trying to sell a climate tech fund. And they did it quite well. Now, as you know, this hype is over. And some of these guys are stepping out. Yeah, they speak now about resilience tech or whatever, meaning, well, let's try to step out and do some defense. And people like us will say, well, we know why we are doing that, and we keep on doing. And then we have to. The funny thing is, it's easier now than 2 or 3 years ago, because people, LPs interested in the topics, yeah, they are really interested. And also on the LP side, we had the guys thinking they must do some green tech, and actually they didn't know why. So that's really changing a lot. So why are we convinced that it is a good topic? Because of course this is why we sell to our LPs. So we had on our pitch deck, and this pitch deck is now better than ever. We started with the slide on the risk analysis of the World Economic Forum. So they analyze each year what are the short-term risks for our economies and societies, and what are the long-term risks. So it's 2 years and 10 years. And there is an enormous stability on the 10 years risk, and 5 of the 10 biggest risks are environmental risks. So climate and other environmental problems. The short-term risk, they change all the time. Yeah? And you can imagine for the time being, we have, unfortunately, war, cybersecurity. 5 years ago, we had infectious diseases. And we are convinced, being long-term investors or having business models which are illiquid, we should target the big issues where you need big solutions, and then you have, of course, big business opportunities. So for us, there is no need to change. But the world around us is changing, and the narrative is changing, so we have to fight for this. Yeah? And we also think that we are fully aligned with the Draghi report. Yeah? We are, in our business model, there is always innovation and digitalization. We are investing in business models that have a positive impact for the decarbonization. And we are part of the security. I wouldn't say I am a resilience tech investor, but of course, the decentralized energy production, the new grids and so on, this is absolutely key to make our industry and economies more resilient. So there is no reason why we shouldn't go on and do this. For venture capital, it's a tricky story, and it was very interesting what you mentioned on we are doing aligned with other venture capital funds. I'm convinced about that, but you cannot finance everything with venture capital, which is clean tech. Because what the problem is we have, as you might know, we are set up for 10 years, +1, and sometimes it's longer, but that's our business model. And in that time, we should be able to sell the companies. So if you have a company doing a huge plant, a first-of-a-kind plant, and you will probably, within this time frame, have no time to show and to have a replicable business model and be able to sell. And that's why they also need probably the 50 million. Yeah? So these big amounts are not only scaling, they are also because the business model are very capital intensive, and that's very tricky. So we have decided to invest only in business model where we know that within the time frame of our fund, we will be able to scale and then to sell the companies. And of course, it excludes some of the investments, and that's where, and you know, we discussed it before, that's where I see a market failure, yeah, and I'm sure that we need some other type of financing instrument, which is something between venture, project financing, infrastructure, and that's where certainly guarantees would really help the banks to jump in. Yeah. So sorry for the long answer.
No, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I think let's travel to north now. I mean, let's go first stop in Sweden. So Corinne, I mean, maybe let's talk about the policy perspective and the ecosystem development. I mean, let's spend some time on that. And I think let's start with you, Corinne. I mean, as you said, I mean, you have already implemented, I mean, the several financial instruments targeting climate and the green investments. So what has been, I mean, the main driver from the, let's say, public policy point of view, why you're doing this? I mean, what is your raison d'être? So why you're here? I mean, why are you doing this? Why you're believing in that?
Yes, well, why do I sit here? Yeah. Yes, well, where do I start? I mean, I'd say if I'd zoom out a bit, I'd like to first mention the climate policy framework that Sweden has. It consists of the Climate Act and climate targets and the Climate Policy Council. For the long-term goal that there should be no emissions of greenhouse gases by 2045. So that is the long-term perspective for the Swedish climate policy framework. And after 2045, the ambition is that it should be zero or negative emissions. Now, the aim of that from a policy perspective, of course, is to create a clear and coherent policy to ensure long-term conditions. It was adopted by broad support in the parliament and also designed to withstand political changes. And it is the key component for Sweden to apply to the Paris Agreement. Now that is, so to say, the legal framework. Then we have also different sorts of initiatives. I mean, we have an innovation framework that emphasizes financing and collaboration. It's a lot about collaboration. We are quite decentralized in Sweden, but collaboration is how shall I say, a key thing in Sweden. Risk-sharing mechanisms, funding of test beds, and commercialization to lower the barriers are a few things I should mention. Then we have also strengthened collaboration between academia and industry and public actors, excellence clusters and so on, innovation ecosystems. And the current government has also reaffirmed Sweden's climate targets and increased funding for programs like the so-called Climate Leap and the Industrial Leap now in the new budget. And the Industrial Leap is also partly financed with the EU Recovery Resilience Fund and the Next Generation EU. Now, on top of that, there are a couple of government, how shall I say, initiatives. One is more long-term strategic initiatives called Fossil-Free Sweden. It has been running for quite some time now, and that is a close collaboration with the industry, and they, together with the industry, make these long-term plans on how to transition into a climate neutral future. So that would be a long-term, so to say, handshake between policy makers, government, and the industry. Then there is another one that this current government also has taken initiative that is called the Acceleration Office. And that is a short-term initiative to really put an emphasis on regulatory issues, so that agencies and public officers would have the tools to pave the way in regulatory means to make it easier for this sort of investments. So it's really interesting, you know, to see how this has developed, and the Acceleration Office goes a bit hand in hand with of course, the productivity enhancement and so on. That would be the overarching goal to enhance productivity. So to combine, in short, to combine green transition with competitiveness, I would say that is the key strategy.
Okay, thanks a lot. So let's take a ferry from Stockholm to Tallinn. Sille, SmartCap has been the fundamental player, I guess, in Estonian ecosystem, the equity ecosystem development, let's say, ecosystem. So, as you said, you have three types of funds. You started as like a generalist, backing generalist VCs. So, but at some point in time, you also set up your own green fund. What's the story behind that? Why did you do that?
Yeah, I think now it's a good time to look back and retrospectively give the right assessment to what we did back in 2021 and 2022. But Estonia is known for its tech ecosystem and success stories, but they all come from the software domain. We know how to build great software and scale it globally, but we had no idea how to build hard tech and scale hardware companies. This is one thing. And another thing in the background was the European Commission's target to be climate neutral economy by 2050. And we realized that with our hugely successful software companies, we're not able to build our local green technology or climate neutral companies. So we basically intentionally, instead of looking forward to 2030 or 2040 and thinking like, okay, most likely we will be importing all these innovative technologies and solutions to get to our climate neutral economy, because we're not able to develop or build anything locally. So if we don't start developing these locally now, we will have nothing to export. So that was sort of the political drive behind it. So that's why we launched the Greentech Fund to develop green technologies locally and be able to export these by 2030. And you are right, Isabel, I think the market has changed. When we entered or started, there was a hype cycle in green technologies. For us, it was very hard to navigate. We were mainly doing very early stage green tech deals. Most of the companies were, now I can say that they were hard to access because there was FOMO. You couldn't really distinguish what is a meaningful company and technology and what is not, because the interest from investors was extremely high anyway. And that was the starting point for us. But where we are now, I would say, yeah, we had a lot of deal flow a few years ago, but now we have the survivors. We are able to invest in meaningful technology that are really disruptive and game changers in green tech. But the worrying signal from what we are seeing is that there's no new deal flow coming to the market because of the hype cycle is over. So we don't see enough, I would say, political push or pull. That's why the deal flow is drying up, not new green technologies. coming to the market. But those who are there are easily accessible. It's easier to help them, more easy to sort of build these companies in the current market environment. And looking forward, we have different dedicated mandates for green technologies and defense technologies. So I'm not going to the defense domain now, but I would say there is a slight overlap, or some green technologies are sitting at the intersection of resilience and green tech or climate tech. Because let's be honest, Europe is net importer of energy. I would say 60% of the energy consumption is coming from third countries. We are importing around 90% of critical raw materials in Europe. So it is, this is a challenge that we're facing during global uncertainty and turbulence. And many of these challenges can be solved and faced with green technologies. And that's how we're redefining our role in the green tech and green transition. So it is turning more into resilience, but we definitely want to see more deal flow and activity on the market to actually face these resilience challenges we're having in Europe.
Okay, maybe I have also a follow-up question to you. I mean, I know there has been a ongoing or never-ending debate about direct investments versus investing in VC funds from the public, let's say, funds perspective. So what? Because I think that was the first time where SmartPack shifted its strategy again to start investing directly as well into companies. So what do you say? What are the pros and cons on doing that from your perspective now?
Yeah, it was, we were more challenged during the hype cycle when there was a lot of private funding pouring to the green tech sector. However, now we have learned that real hard tech that is capital intensive with very long development cycles, high technological risks, there are even private investors. If they want to invest in, it's attractive for them. They might not have a sufficient amount of capital available, or they're not ready to put that needed capital on the table to actually support the company on the journey. So our investors don't have deep enough pockets, and they're maybe not ready to put that much capital at risk in these very risky investments. So what we can do, we can basically de-risk or share part of the risk with private investors, because we never invest alone. We always invest together with private investors. So let's say they find a technology that is attractive for them, but and 5 million euros is needed to bring it to the next level and reach the milestones, raise the next funding round. But the investor just is not able to put 5 million that is needed on the table. So what we can do, we can join the round and put half of it, or even more, cover more of the funding needed. So we can definitely share risk and de-risk the private investors to actually make the investment decisions easier for them. Otherwise, if they don't have that 5 million that is needed for the company, it can be quite a black and white or zero or one decision for them. They just don't invest at all. This is one thing that we have noticed. Also in our region, private investors or venture capital funds, they're relatively small. Again, even if they're able to make the initial investment, then they are unable to support the company in the follow-on rounds once the amounts get really big. Once the companies start manufacturing, setting up factories, and the need for capital increases dramatically, then investors in our regions just don't have enough capital to continue supporting the company. And maybe the third very specific angle or value that the state investor can bring on the table and the companies appreciate more often than we realized is that in certain strategic areas like energy sector, innovative energy tech companies want to see state in their cap table or ownership structure when they are selling the product to large, like conventional clients, either in Europe or Asia. It is sort of a validation or extra layer of comfort and security to the end users and clients when they're selling the product, but also fundraising that the state has validated and is behind very strategic sectors, not just in terms of technological validation, but also the regulated. We understand the market that they're operating in, they're proven on the local market. Also the ownership structure, we need to understand what's the ownership structure of companies in sort of strategic sectors, active in strategic sectors. And that's sort of the cap table vetting and cleaning element as well. So there are many aspects that a state investor can bring on the table and how it can add value, which is very unique compared to private investors.
Okay, thanks a lot. So Jan, to you, let's take a plane from Tallinn to Germany. So from your perspective, I mean, how policy and finance can support companies like yourself, to actually to be active, in this sector, so and how to bring the green tech solutions to market. So what is your take on this, like, from the entrepreneur point of view?
So, overall, I would say that a lot is happening already, right? Otherwise, probably I wouldn't also be sitting here, because without the funding that GetFund brought and other VC investors, would have been very difficult to build up this company at this pace, right? So kudos to everybody involved here. However, I think if we zoom out a bit, right, and we look at the competition that we face in Europe on a global stage, we are far too small, yeah? So we have to get our act together and funding is one component, capital is one component, but it's an important component. I think we have so much going on in Europe and the soil is there, the seeds are there, the water sometimes is there, it's a little, right? And on an international scale, we have one drop in the bucket, right? Compared to the US ecosystem, also when it comes to VC investing, we are 5 years behind, 10 years behind. China, different ecosystem, completely different country, obviously, with not just upsides, but a lot of downsides, right? So we don't want to mimic, but what they have for sure is a very clear-cut industrial policy, right? In Germany, we're still debating, right, about Technologieoffenheit, so technology openness, right? So not dictating whether we go for the heat pump, so leaving households and firms the choice among different things, right? Going for a hydrogen heater, right? Using a gas heater powered by hydrogen, or going for all these shenanigans, right? Even though everybody knows what the clear winner in the technological field is, right? And China is betting heavily on those winners, right? Batteries, electric vehicles, so not fuel cells. They try it out as well, but it's clear cut what they are doing, and this is our competition, right? And also, if I talk to VC investors, I talked to my co-founder, and what we did as part of our fundraising in the last 2 rounds was we deliberately said, okay, let's not get a hothead VC from Berlin into our cap table. And that was a very deliberate decision, but we had to talk to 170 investors as part of our last round last summer to get the 2 ones that actually got our case, right? And last sentence about basically pushing it back a little on VC investment overall, or what is the synonym of VC investing in what at least Germany and Europe, I would say, that applies broadly, is that VC is basically, the equivalent to B2B SaaS investing. Yeah? Why? Because it scales quickly, it's not very capital intense, and so on, and you have the chance to have a fund returner. to me, VC investing is early stage, high risk, high potential return. So many of the VC investors ask me, is like, are you a VC case? Like, well, my answer was, if you tell me how you define VC, I can give you the answer, right? So what I'm saying is here, the funding and the capital we need is not an early stage. It's not the seed rounds and so on and so forth. It's really scaling up companies, right? Because if I talk to VC investors in Germany, most know the names of NPAL, 1,5, Termondo and so on. And they think the market's already gone. On aggregate, all of those players, all of the big scale-ups, so to say, they have an aggregate market share of less than 5%. This is how big those markets are, right? And this is how big the opportunities are. But in order to conquer them, especially on a European landscape, we need much more funding. Not for everybody, right, obviously, yeah. So it's a power law, obviously. So the selection process has to be there, and therefore I think local VCs really have the context, the understanding, the know-how. But we have to get really on a like 2 orders of magnitude higher scale in order to really, you know, be able to address the challenges that we face in Europe.
Okay, thanks a lot. Corinne, you wanted to jump in and complement?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm, you know, doing things to your agenda here.
No,
I just wanted to.
We're having a nice chat here. I
was
jump
told
in.
it was a fireside chat.
There's no fire, but it's definitely chat.
Anyway. No, sorry. I'll be brief. I really, it's interesting what you're saying, and I do agree with you that when it comes to funding, we need to think about all the small pools that we have here in Europe versus the bigger, much bigger scale and larger amounts of capital, for instance, in the US. I mean, we talk about two valleys of death quite often here, don't we? I mean, the first in the startup scale, and that is fairly easy-ish to address, and especially with the RDF money, for example. That's what we have done in Sweden. And it doesn't take that much national co-financing, public co-financing, and it doesn't take that much private co-financing from business angels and likes. But when we go and start to scale up, that's when the issue gets more difficult. And I mean, we can see initiatives now from talking about the next programming period, the new MFF and so on, and the initiative with the competition fund. That is all very good because EU is aiming for something really big up here. But then we have 27 member countries, and then we have regional policy down here. So the question is, what do we do in between? And then there is a, how shall I say, the national governments have a role to play here, of course, as always, but also to be the link between the EU level, the pan-European level, and the regional development level. We need something in between, which might address some of the cases that you are referring to early scale up, so to say. So I think that would be interesting to talk more about from a policy perspective, what can be done, because that will also, I'm almost done, because that would require also member state maybe to cooperate in between and not just look at EU versus member state and member state. So maybe we should, try and think.
I think it's a very
regions.
good point, and I think that's also ties back to the discussion we also had yesterday. I think when we talked about the initiatives, tackling more than one member state, one region. So it's like a cross-border initiatives, and I think we have several good examples already happening in Europe, but there always probably could be better. More and better. This kind of like a scale-up financing solutions. But maybe, I think that was also something what came out from your study, Salome, the financing, and that there's a definitely need for scale-up financing. What other recommendations you had, in your studies in terms of where we should add, what should be addressed, and what are the, let's say, policy recommendations going forward, financing, the Greentech from your study or research?
So yeah, not only the research that I presented there, of course, we are following the trends, and there it's also, everyone knows that US is sometimes, depending on the sources, but 5-6 times higher in VC investment in general. But for clean techs, it's around maybe twice big, which means that Europe is doing relatively better in clean techs. But then when you divide in the stages, indeed, it's the relative to startup financing, scale up is much smaller, of course, compared to US again. So that's also where we need it. What we discussed now about the lacking of finance, in general, what EIF is very much demand driven. So we get funding, very secured one from the Commission, but that's not, and then from EIB, but that's not enough. It's not only enough to be demand driven, and then I say one of the biggest role of EIF is to stimulate private investment. So that's why we are trying to also learn. I think that whatever we have from our studies, our front office colleagues already know, because they have the feeling, but they need to have supported because they can also pitch it to other LPs. So they are trying to go around and then ask to increase the private involvement of the states and then also the pension funds, which is much less. Like pension funds in Europe, they contribute 10 times less than in US. I mean the contribution to the VC. So that's one of the reasons. Also, what EIF tries also to give the knowledge on the returns, and then that's why they try to be more transparent, publish the data on VC returns. So it's TrackU data that it's newly launched in August. So they are trying to also to give the knowledge to private investors to chip in and do it together, not only the funding, public funding that needs to go there.
All right, Isabel, you wanna jump in?
Yeah, there are so many things, and now I have to jump. So, one of the facts which is very important to analyze where is the market not working well, is that the fundraising, the private fundraising, has dramatically dropped the last 2 or 3 years now. So I have the figures for 2022 to 2024. It was minus 60% worldwide. Yeah. So when in Europe we are around minus 50, and this year it's the same way. So that's why it's very difficult to compare, and this there is a lack, so to say, because for the time being there is still money in the funds, but this will change quickly. Yeah? So, and that's why it's so important that the public side keeps going and not saying, well, you know, now things are going well, we have financed so many funds, many will not be able to raise the next one, yeah, because of this dropping, because there is no exits and the performances are not exciting for the time being. So this change will hit us very hard, yeah. So that's why it's so important, please, to keep on with the programs that you have, because we need, generally speaking, we need more money. Now, on the aspect of where should this money go? You mentioned the Valley of Death, and this is absolutely crucial. So there are phases, there are regions, and there are sectors where you have the market doesn't work well, yeah, or where you need much more capital than normal funds can bring. So it used to be life science, now it's life science and deep tech, and within deep tech we have some clean tech. So that's why we still have a need there, also even in the early stage. But what is not okay is when the public instruments do crowding out. Yeah? So that was the problem the last 2 or 3 years, and you mentioned that it was difficult for you to get in. But if it's difficult for you to get in, and sorry for that because I was on your side, so it's good because the market works, yeah? So there should be a quick time of reacting to market changes and to say, okay, if the market doesn't need us, let's go out, and perhaps we will have to come back in 5 years because the market is changing. But it's so important not to disturb the market where it works, yeah? And now it's the really difficult part, because if we say the growth part is not working, so you need really huge tickets. So you need from the public side people taking the responsibility of losing 100 million, 200 million or whatever. And that's really complicated, and that's why probably it's better to have initiatives like ETCI to say, well, let's have big funds and let's give the bet on them that they will do it the right way, because otherwise I cannot imagine any public side being able to do such things. You know, in Bavaria, there is a financing of EIB directly in their growth fund. Yeah, so they have a regional growth equity fund, and they are able to go to up to 50 million. Wow, yeah, so it's
happening. Sille, you wanted to compliment?
Yeah, I start with your remarks, Isabel. I agree, and I think the state should be somewhat counter-cyclical, or make sure that the capital is available across cycles. It is so true that the private capital fundraising and supply at the same time is decreasing dramatically, and the question is, who's going to replace that, or does it need to be replaced, right? Maybe that's the new normal level of funding and investing in Europe. We're sitting and waiting where because we don't want to crowd out, we just want to make sure that we're at an adequate level. So definitely we should be cross-cyclical, and it doesn't usually work in our favor or market's favor, because also getting public funding from the governments is not easy when there's a down cycle or economical downturn. At SmartCap, we have secured a buffer for that strategically, to make sure that for a small and very open economy like Estonia is, we need to be able to replace the foreign capital once it goes home during economical down cycle or more complicated geopolitical situation. So that is true, but now I want to comment the other remarks regarding the growing need of capital once the company starts scaling. It is true, I here want to stand for the companies who want to scale or who are able to scale in Europe, because very often we see that when they should really focus on scaling, developing the product, setting up the manufacturing, they are spending way too much time and resources on fundraising. And they can't keep their focus on where they really should keep their focus on building the product and getting it to the market. So yes, scaling in Europe is hard. We have 27 countries with geographical restrictions and limitations when we start talking about funding the companies. So the company might want to scale across Europe or out of Europe, but during fundraising, it's facing so many challenges. So they are fundraising small amounts across Europe, and they die on the way, and they have no time to actually develop the product, because they are stuck on this very fragmented European market, trying to fundraise euro by euro. So that is a challenge. So building European tech champions on a fragmented market is very, very complicated. And not just the equity side. Once you start scaling, you also need debt funding, which I'm not sure that is as easily available in Europe for innovative and disruptive technologies as equities. I think we're quite fine, especially in hype cycles, we're quite fine with equity. But we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of debt. Because all these scaling companies start setting up manufacturing, and that's when it would make much more sense to have debt in your capital structure, because equity is super expensive, and it shouldn't be wasted on operational expenses. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Very good points. Jade, you wanted to come in as well?
Hello. Yeah, just very quickly, we're talking a lot on the supply side of the equation, and the demand side of the market uptake is what I was trying to address in the very beginning. There's a big demand. So, for example, we made a survey with banks in Poland and Romania to see why is it and how much is there demand for firms adopting clean technologies, the ones that will install the heat pump, the solar panel, and so on. And it's only 2.2% of the total portfolio of lending is going to firms that are adopting clean tech in those two countries. 2.2% is very insignificant, and we try to understand from the banks what's happening, and their response is there is no demand Of course, if you ask the firms and the expert, they'll tell you, we don't get financing, the banks consider the risk profile is not suited and so on. But in fact, the more you look at it, the more you see an asymmetry of information here. And there is a lot of sometimes availability of funding. I'm not talking VC, I'm talking on the demand side, so the firms that will acquire the technology and become your markets. But there is very little information that helps firms take the decision to acquire the technology. Most firms that in our research is showing are overconfident about how advanced they are in terms of technology and capacities compared to where they really are. And there is a lack of information about what's the return on that investment. So better information, auditors, automatic systems by which you can get access to the information is very important to accompany the financial resources that you're putting on the market to scale. I mean, I think when we're talking about scaling, it's essentially about the market adopting massively, really owning, and that is a very big missing piece where public funding should be accompanied with information so that the firms really be more aware of the value of that investment and that acquisition and become massive clients of the firms that are on the innovation side.
Jan, you wanna have your point of view on this? I mean,
so if I hear scaling, I can
scaling and the demand from the. I mean, yeah, whether you want to scale and whether you have actually demand on the for your, let's say, improving the world. I mean, heat pump. So, what's your? How do you see? I mean, your business to grow, and what are the main obstacles? I mean, along the way at the moment.
How much time do I have about talking about the obstacles?
Not much.
No, but I want to double down on one important point I mentioned before, and about really the growth funding. I think there's a lack, and there's also a gap, a mental gap that we need to overcome, because if we talk about public funding, that goes into technologies, we mostly think about this this gap at the very early stage, right? R&D, university, and so on. No private investors going to chip in money if it's really 15 years out, fundamental, a Nobel Prize type of winning innovation or invention in the first place. However, there's also a gap in growth. And in growth, what is happening generally when it comes to public or semi-public investing is, if I talk to the A-player founders in different countries, they don't want to have those funds in their cap table, because many times it's seen as this is a signal towards later stage investors overseas, in the sense of, they didn't get money elsewhere. They weren't good enough for the private investor, for the private VCs, which I think is a misconception that is, but also empirically founded, right? Because sometimes those semi-public funds made those investments into companies that are B class or C class. And I think you can do that in the early stage and seed, because you waste a couple of millions per ticket. You shouldn't do that or at least not often, in the hundreds, 200s, 500 millions range, right? But you should have the mandate and be explicit about, also to the constituency, about that risk of happening, right? There might be a chance that this 500 million investment into this whatever fusion, rocket, whatever kind of company is probably gone, right? And this is a mindset shift that will only happen in Europe, I think, over decades, right, or generations. But that is something that we need to start with, because if I think back about the Northvolt investment that was also co-financed by public money in Germany, money's gone, right? The battery factory in the northern part of Germany. Now everybody, like the conservatives in Germany, the citizens say, well, this was policymakers putting money into something that will never work. I look at this from a different standpoint. I think it was long overdue. It could have worked. It was bold from a public standpoint, bold from a private standpoint. Didn't work for a couple of reasons, but I think we should do more of those things, actually. We need to do more of those things, but really focus on, EU money should be placed on the A players. It should be a label of saying, well, this money, this goes only to the very best, right? And I think we have to, also start working on that, right? Basically relabeling what this money actually signifies. It's not for the losers and B and C players. It's really for the only, small elite players.
Thanks. So I guess we could go on and on, but maybe let's open the floor for questions from the audience. I mean, if we have anything, any hands raised, I mean, we're gonna take also questions from you. If you don't have anything, I mean, we can also keep. Okay, we have here. Maybe we can have a mic here, on the fourth row. Please also tell your name and where you're coming from and the question or comment.
My name is Andrzej. I work at Financial Instruments Unit of DG Regio. Thank you very much for very insightful, inspiring debate. Perhaps the solution to the problem of limited availability of resources, public resources, is a more tailored intervention. And of course, higher uptake of financial instruments that we are discussing since Tuesday. But on this note, what do you think? Is there a specific technology that you see European industry have biggest gaps when compared to, let's say, our major competitors? That would be my question number one. And the question number two, how do you think the green tech sector should adapt to this difficult world with limits imposed on exporting the essential raw materials from the outside? Because on one hand, I think it's difficult to imagine technology development without these critical raw materials, but if this tendency continues to let's say, impose even more tariffs on international trade, I think that at a certain moment, researchers and developers should find a solution to this problem as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So who wants to jump in? Who is the brave here? Views on.
I can maybe answer the first question on the gap. So I think what we saw also from the studies, it was that the alternative fuel, that was the subsector of the clean tech that was less developed than others, and that's also very important since the European Clean Industrial Deal outlines that actually the clean techs were supposed to decarbonize the heavy industries. So one of these is also to work on the alternative fuels. That's the subsector that is missing right now. And for the second one on the exports, I don't know if you have any.
Well, I mean, it's a topic of circular economy, of how to reuse, of to recycle products, and I mean, there are a lot of very interesting business models around that, and there are new technologies that really tackle how to build products that are independent, where we can do it on a European basis. So I'm still optimistic on that, but we have to be quick, of course.
Jade, maybe you have looked into this kind of topic. I mean, the critical raw materials in your studies. I mean, let's say on the supply chains. I mean, the various sectors, segments. Have you looked into that? I mean, specifically, or not really?
No, we didn't look at the critical. I mean, there is a whole another set of research that is going on this that I'm not working on, so I wouldn't be able to communicate you on the critical materials. But maybe a few things to keep in mind is that the reuse, the industry, the circular economy industry is in that sense very strategic, including on critical materials, because when you're importing batteries and your raw materials, those are going to be used here and they're going to be retrofitted and reused, and the more the capacities are there and advanced in reusing existing systems, the more you are actually addressing all of that critical material that you imported and you don't want to go to waste. I mean, take the battery industry in Romania. There is if you look at we analyze the EV battery value chain, and the focus is usually on the electrical vehicle battery but then if you look at the battery sector, there are lots of other market segments that are quite interesting. For example, the BESS, the battery energy storage systems, that have a transversal application, that are, for example, I mean, the more you are able to develop your capacities, the firms are able to develop their capacities in that sector, the more they can serve, for example, the wind farm sector. You know, there is a lot of transversal connections, and those are often forgotten because we focus on the one that is most catchy in terms of name, but there are very interesting segments that are being ignored.
Silla, you want?
Yes. For me, it feels like we need to understand what's the objective. Are we talking about the climate impact and increasing it, or increasing the resilience and independence? Because as long as we are so dependent on third countries on energy and critical raw materials, we are open or exposed to risks of access to energy and critical raw materials, price increases, price manipulation that is transferred to the end users or retail customers immediately. So I guess we need to maybe redefine why we're doing it, why we're investing in these green technologies, and that will give us part of the answer. Northvolt was a great example, I guess. From a judgmental point of view, yes, we should give it the right assessment. Someone tried hard, made a bold move, failed. I guess at least someone tried and made a bold move. We are so far from SpaceX and Starlink in US, so let's just celebrate that someone had the courage to try. But from observation point of view, why they failed. And we need to understand why they failed. Was it their supply chain and disruptions in supply chain? Or maybe something else?
Just
I
bad
guess
founders.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
All right, no, thanks a lot. I think, unfortunately, the time is over. We could keep going on, but I think, the closing session is waiting already. So I really encourage you to take the opportunity after the official part and during the lunchtime to just speak with us, with the panelists. If you want to replicate the Swedish case or learn from Estonian case study, or just to speak the practitioners and also Jade and Salome, then just keep the opportunity and keep the discussion alive. So let's keep working together to accelerate the green transition. With that happy note, I will close the session. Thank you. Thank you. And big applause to the panelists.
I think it's become one of my favorite weeks of the year, if not the most. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be here. And as we've said, this event wouldn't have been possible without a big team behind the scenes from the organizers' side at FICompass, but also from the contractors, the organizers, the audiovisual team, the hosts and hostesses. So can I ask for a big round of applause for everyone? But then, please. This event has run really smoothly, and I've seen a few. And these are the people who don't really notice them when things go well. So this is why we also have to celebrate them, because it's been a great pleasure to work with you. It's been so easy to work with you. At the start of the event on Tuesday, we acknowledged the fact that all of you came here despite all the logistical constraints. We said that we would make these 3 days worth your while, and I think we did it. Because indeed the quality of the content was second to none. The program after the official part of the event was incredible. So thank you also to all of you for all your energy throughout the past 3 days. So that's it from my side. And since we didn't get to do it yet, I wanted to ask a little something. So at the count of 3, I would want everyone to say happy birthday, FICompass, to wrap up the event, shall we? All right, so the count of 3. 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday!